Welcome to Dear Source, your Ascendancy Hotline, your daily dose of spiritual guidance where we dive deep into real life questions and struggles using ancient wisdom and universal principles to find clarity, peace, and alignment. Whether you're navigating relationships, inner conflict, or seeking purpose, this is a space where we honor your journey with compassion, non judgment, and insights. Drawing from universal laws, A Course in Miracles, the Law of One, and the Hermetic Principles, we are here to help you find the answers, connect to your truth, and elevate your path to healing and growth. Now, let's explore today's letter and connect with the wisdom of Source. Today's letter comes from Struggling to Co-Parent. Dear Source, I'm facing a challenging situation with my ex when it comes to co-parenting, particularly around making medical decisions for our children. We see the world through two completely different lenses, and it feels like we can never agree on anything. Our constant disagreements are making it difficult to focus on what's truly best for our kids. I'm a very spiritual person, and I believe in using as little medication as possible, relying more on natural and holistic approaches. My ex, on the other hand, is much more conventional and prefers to follow traditional medical practices. This conflict has created a lot of tension, and I'm afraid that in the middle of it, we will forget to prioritize our children's well-being. How can I approach these conversations with my ex in a way that honors both of our perspectives while keeping the best interests of our children at heart? I don't want our differences to continue to affect our children negatively, but I'm struggling to find common ground. Please help me find a path forward. Sincerely, Struggling to Co-Parent. So thank you, Struggling to Co-Parent, for your beautiful letter. I appreciate your vulnerability, authenticity in sharing what has to be a very challenging situation. And in this, again, everything presents itself of what is the universe trying to teach us. Everything is just a lesson for us to learn, to grow and evolve on our spiritual journey. And what I would like to start off with is, how do we really honor and know who we truly are? So, first and foremost, what I would offer, and I think this is probably more of where you come from based on what you shared in your letter, is that as individuals, we are whole and complete and made perfect in the image of God. So when I think of each and every one of us, we are made that way, and our children are made that way. And we have a society that has really taught us that we are broken, that there's something wrong, that we are victims. Like, we are not getting reinforcement to our children of, you are a divine emanation of God. You are whole and complete. You are perfectly and fiercely made. And when I think of illness, whether it be a physical ailment, a lot of times we're spiritual beings having a human experience. And so in our ascension, and as we rise and grow as human beings in our spirituality, part of it is our body has to upgrade with us. And part of the upgrade that we go through can often come out in physical symptoms for us as individuals. So, for example, like, let's say you have a cold and your throat might hurt. That's usually connected with that you're upgrading your throat chakra. And so there's always a spiritual meaning, in my belief, in what I would offer here, behind the physical symptoms that we're experiencing in our body. The body's just our GPS to understand what's really going on. So if we're having some type of physical ailment, That's because we're typically upgrading our souls, and our body has to upgrade and match our soul's frequency. So as our frequency rises, our body has to rise with it and match it, which means there's most likely going to be physical ailments associated with that. There's also the element of mental health that falls into, I think, the letter that you shared. And what I would offer as I was reading this and thinking about this is we are very gifted and magical and special human beings. And we don't even know all of our talents and capabilities that we have. We are, when you think of like, what are things that we have that maybe other species don't, is, being clairvoyant, being clairsentient, all the clairs, all the things that tap us into a knowingness beyond ourselves, being able to see something, be able to know something, maybe you hear something. And as we evolve it journey as a human species, we are bringing in more and enlightened beings are incarnating on our planet. So, for example, I have two children, and I look at their degree of spiritual intelligence and how they perceive the world and what they know. And it's really quite magical how advanced it is. And we don't give them a lot of credit for that. And I think part of what can go on as our children are growing and maturing is that they have magical, incredible gifts that they may or may not be tapped into or even know what they mean and or doing. So when I think about maybe more like spirit or mental issues, there might be like, I'm feeling all these things, and maybe I'm really super empathic and I'm picking up on other people's feelings and emotions, and I'm feeling all stressed out and, discombobulated, and they don't even know what to do with that. And so there's so much at play. But I think the thing that I would just return you back to, and also return you back to your internal knowingness, is that our children are whole and complete. They are magical, magical human beings. And I think part of what's going on within our society is trying to keep us out of our divinity. And one of the things that I would contend helps us keep out of our divine nature of remembering that we are emanations of God. Our DNA spells and tells us that we are God eternal within the body, are things such as modern medicine and drugs. And I'm not saying all of it's bad, but I think you've got to really tune in and use your discernment, because our bodies are so magical, they can heal themselves. Our bodies are so magical that every 6 weeks we have a brand new liver in our body, because our cells are regenerating over and over and over again to create something new. That's how magical we are as human beings. And that's science. And I would just encourage every listener to go out and do your research, to listen to other people that do this. I would point you in direction. Whether it's Dr. Joe Dispenza, there's a whole host of people that you could reach out to just understand the truly magnificence of the human vessel that we are incarnated in. And so I think part of the disconnect maybe between you and your ex-husband, which that's also a whole nother dynamic, is to really honor and understand like who we are as human beings, and that we can truly heal ourselves. And we are magnificent. And so there's that element, I think, just to reinforce that you're on the right track. And the other piece is like, how do you hold that truth? Because again, everything happens divinely. There's nothing in our universe that's happening that is not in divine right order. So the fact that you and your ex spouse, ex partner came together and had children, the universe didn't get it wrong in partnering you two up for those children and what those children need. And part of the lesson is, how do you step into your truth and know exactly what you believe and who you are, and hold that frequency and not bend or sway in an unloving way to concede maybe to your spouse, where it's like, oh, I want to avoid conflict, so I'll just cave in and give in to what he believes. And I think that's where we really have gone wrong in society as well, is this energy of people pleasing. And you see this pronounced not only in what you just described in this letter, but you also see that in every facet of life. Is like, how do we know who we are and hold that truth of who we are and do it in the most loving way possible, and understand where your partner is coming from as well. And to know that part of the lesson is you might be in a spiritual bypass with them, and you might have to allow and surrender and trust. And maybe this is even articulated to them, for the divine to really start to take care of it. Like, the universe is divinely orchestrated and divinely at work. And so, although there's times where you're like, I'm sure thinking, what did I do? Like, why doesn't this stop? But it's trusting that the universe didn't get it wrong. Your children needed you as their mom, and the children needed you as their dad. And there's both lessons to be taught. But caving in to your ex-partner to make it less perceived negative answer either. You teaching children, your children to come into the newness of who they are. So are you reminding them that they're being holy, they are all this, they're an emanation of God, they're perfectly perfect, and at any end, whether physical or mental, is just an opportunity for them to align their truth. And are they being put in situations when it comes to their care to help remember that? And I think that's where I have challenges when it comes to modern, especially when I look at the mental health, where it's like we want to keep people very victimized, that they're very broken, that you now have to be on medication. Let's say if you're a baby until you're adult of your life. And I'm not saying it's not right or not wrong. You have to really use your discernment to wade through what is right and what is wrong. But what I would really, really advocate is, are you teaching your children how to step into your truth? Because part of the separation and why maybe you and your spouse or partner are no longer together is because of those differences, and that you can teach your children that you can honor your truth of who you are and still be loving, and to hold your ground firm, without there being any negative conflict within that. Because in honoring yourself, you then get to honor everybody else. And when you don't honor yourself, that's sending a signal to everybody else that we don't honor who we are, and we start to compromise. And so we have to honor our truth and do it in a way that is so loving to everybody else around us. And I don't know the ages of the children in this letter, but as they start to age and grow, number one, they're human beings from the inception. So one thing that I will say I've learned as I've gone on my spiritual journey as a parent is like seeing my children as whole and complete human beings. And I am their teacher through my actions and the way I orientate myself in life by being an example. So if I want my kids to know their truth, am I standing in my truth? Do I know who I am? Am I emanating that out into the world through love, through actions? And am I giving them access? Because when I do that, I'm giving them access to do the same. And I know it can be challenging, especially when you're like, yes, I'm doing that. And then the spouse on the other side is like, maybe the complete opposite as you kind of described in this letter. But know that they're being taught and learning through both of those situations, and that God has them perfectly held. Every one of us is perfectly held by God in every given moment, right where we're supposed to be. And we're not here to be anybody's saviors, even our children's. We are here to be the highest and greatest version of ourselves. And when we come into the knowingness of the highest and greatest version of ourselves, we give access to our children to do the very same thing. You're giving them access through your example. So continue to hold your example, continue to focus on the spiritual lessons that are designed for you. What are you learning? How do you hold that truth? How do you not move into the energy of people pleasing, but knowing that is loving? Holding my truth is love. And I, in that unconditional loving space, I'm giving access to everybody else to come into their own truth. And through that, you and your ex-partner may have a really engaging conversation. You may have a situation where creating space and holding your space and holding your ground creates the needed space for the natural healing to occur with the universe. So just remember, the universe is divinely organized. It's perfect. It has everyone and everything held right where they need to be. We are divine emanations of God. We are perfectly made. Are we reinforcing that within ourselves? And when we reinforce that within ourselves, are we reinforcing that with our children? And allowing that knowingness of truth to really hold your boundary with your spouse and you ex-spouse, and you can do that in a very loving way. And that in there, that allowing and in that space, there comes healing, there becomes truth. So there's so much that I could continue to go on with, but I want to make sure that those are really the key points, that we're perfectly made, that we are here to be emanations and examples for our children. And through our own work and through our own examples, we're giving them access to that as well. And to stand in that energy of our truth. We are here to emanate our truth, our light, what we believe, and to do that in an unconditional, loving way. And allow the universe to take its course. It is divinely, divinely orchestrated. It never gets anything wrong. It only gives us growth and lessons to elevate us to the highest level. So even during this challenging time, you are growing into a different degree of who you are as an individual that will continue to shine your light, continue to be an example for the world, and continue to grow. So if you have any more questions about that, please reach back out. If any listeners have any questions about that, please let me know. On Fridays, I'll be going over questions that came up from the episodes during this current week and answer, as well as talk about what's coming up in our next week's episodes. So thank you for joining us on today's episode of Dear Source, your Ascendancy Hotline, where we align spiritual principles with real world experiences. Remember, no matter the challenges you face, peace, clarity, and wisdom are always available when you connect with your higher self. If today's discussion resonated with you and you're seeking deeper personalized guidance, I invite you to book a session with me. Together, we can explore your spiritual path and unlock the answers you've been searching for. And if you're ready to connect with a like-minded spiritual community, join us at the Ascendancy Collective, where we support each other in our growth, healing, and ascension. You don't have to walk this path alone. Join us and let's rise together. Until next time, trust the process, honor your truth, and stay connected with Source.